Ensign Kim has reported an exciting discovery, a subspace disturbance which may be a wormhole.
Poor Ensign Kim. It's crazy how many times he thinks he finds a wormhole and then doesn't, or the wormhole he finds can't be used to get anyone home. I should probably keep account of it.
But is it stable enough for us to enter, and if it is, where does it lead?
There is, of course, a 75% chance a wormhole will not lead to the Alpha Quadrant.
This is a pointless statistic. Showing up anywhere in the Beta or Alpha Quadrant would be a marked improvement. Heck, showing up in the Gamma Quadrant could even be counted as a win since they'd be a lot closer to the DS9 wormhole. Even if it existed in the Delta Quadrant, odds are high they'd at least be closer to home since Ocampa was at the edge of the galaxy. Also, I give you the face of a woman who's had just about enough of a smarmy know-it-all being pedantic all the time.
Aye, Captain. And may I suggest, if this works, we petition the Federation Astronomical Committee to officially designate this the Harry Kim wormhole.
Look at Tom looking out for his bestie. And Janeway has her hands on her hips again.
Captain, we're approaching the coordinates of the wormhole.
On screen.
Better look out, Tom. I think Katie O'Clair is about to break out into an Irish dance. Oh my goodness, that joke was painfully unfunny. Forget it, I'm keeping it. It took way too long for me to do this.
Mr. Kim, are you able to analyze it?
Aye, Captain. It's virtually microscopic. The aperture is only about 30 centimeters in diameter.
That's about 14 inches in diameter for everyone who lived in the country this aired in.
I guess it's a little too small for us to fly through.
However, it might be large enough to act as a conduit for a message.
It makes a lot of sense that Tuvok is the only one thinking rationally at this point. Everyone else is feeling down that they're not going to make it home, but Tuvok, despite his gloomy report earlier, recognizes that they might at least let loved ones know that they're not dead yet.
We still have to find out if it goes anywhere near the Alpha Quadrant. Can you trace its subspace bearing?
This is one of those lines of dialogue that didn't need to exist. Trace its subspace bearing. It has the form of intelligence, but it's meaningless the more you think about it. Besides, the dialogue flows just fine without it. I mean, look!
We still have to find out if it goes anywhere near the Alpha Quadrant.
I recommend we launch a microprobe into the wormhole.
Agreed.
Boom. Perfect.
I recommend we launch a microprobe into the wormhole.
Agreed.
The microprobe was last seen in the last episode of The Cloud, and at the same time, this episode is the last episode it will be seen in.
Doesn't look like any wormhole I've ever studied.
I bet if Tom had studied more British TV series, it would have looked very familiar, albeit a little on the green side.
I think what we're seeing is a wormhole in an advanced state of decay. Must be ancient. Probably been collapsing for centuries.
Janeway has no way of knowing this. In fact, we later see Reg making wormholes even smaller than 36 centimeters, and they hadn't been in decay for centuries. Janeway's right, of course, though.
Any idea yet where that message would end up, Ensign?
I'll try extrapolating the Verteron exit vector.
The Verteron exit vector? Didn't we see a TNG episode where someone was searching for a new Verteron city?
But what do you know? We're here! New vertiform city!
That was pretty close for me.
Any idea yet where that message would end up, Ensign?
I'll try extrapolating the Verteron exit vector.
Also, I had not noticed this before, but Chakotay really had a problem with Ensign Kim at the beginning of the series.
Nah, I can't get it. There's a strange phase variance in the radiation stream.
That is it. Unless it's especially egregious, I am not going to call out any more of the bad science word salad for this episode. It's a good episode, and I don't want to stop for each time this comes up. I don't feel like it's this bad in later seasons, but my goodness, everything they say in this dialogue goes one step too far. I could have accepted there being a strange phase variance, but they had to throw in the radiation stream. Let me guess, the radiation stream is by the biogenic energy brook that flows in the positronic sea, where its quantum foam makes Voyager roam!
It's stuck.
Stuck.
It's mired in a gravitational eddy. And because the wormhole's in a state of collapse, those eddies are incredibly dense.
Having a wormhole in decay have a spot where the gravity went a little wonky was actually a great way to set up the rest of this episode. It was clever, and I wish the rest of the science in this scene had followed suit.
What is it, Ensign?
Our probe was just scanned. There's somebody on the other side of the wormhole.
I love this minor twist. Instead of having the mood lift because the probe breaks free, having the lifting moment be someone scanning it on the other side was fantastic. Sure, it was unlikely as snow on Christmas in Dallas, but I can cut some things a little slack for a story to happen. Just checking in on Tuvok's rank, and it looks like he's still a lieutenant commander for now.
Started acting up a couple of days ago. I've been working out in the gym. Maybe I overdid it.
Is it sore here?
Yes.
This interaction represents the maximum disrespect we'll ever see against the Doctor, but it makes no sense to me. People naturally look at an electronic device when it's talking to them, like the Alexa.
If I had to get treatment for something serious, if I needed surgery, for instance, would he be performing it?
Of course, and quite expertly, too.
I don't know. I'd have to think twice about that.
There was an episode of MASH where a patient had this kind of attitude about not wanting to have any blood from a black person. To teach him a lesson, the medic stabbed a tea-stained cotton ball all over him and told him that he was turning black because they had accidentally used blood from a black person. I would have loved to see that kind of thing happening to this random lieutenant, but I'll settle for some of the Doctor's dry sass instead.
These deal with human anatomy and physiology, but they weren't written for the layman. They're quite technical.
I understand. I'll do my best. And I really appreciate your help.
See what I meant in the Phage video? Kes as a character, independent from Neelix, was fairly tolerable.
Someone on the other end of that wormhole is definitely interested in that probe.
We cannot preclude the possibility that there is a microscopic entity within the wormhole, curious about an intruder.
Normally, I would say this was a grossly illogical leap. But Tuvok knows about the wormhole aliens from DS9. I mean, there's no reason not to believe other wormholes didn't have aliens of their own.
That's possible, but you'd think our probe would have detected something like that.
Would it though, Harry? I don't think in all of DS9 anyone was ever able to scan and detect the wormhole aliens.
I can modify our subspace communications band to accept the probe as a booster.
Let's try it, Mr. Kim.
Look at Harry's face. He is overflowing with enthusiasm.
They probably just think we're lost.
It's still gonna be hard on my folks. I always called them once a week, even when I was on my training missions.
Now, while I have never personally spent any time in the military, I have had a fair number of friends who were, and oddly enough, they never mentioned being allowed to call home to mommy during training. I wonder why they admitted that detail. Weird.
Well, it is going to work, Starfleet. So pretty soon they're gonna know you're all right.
Hey, B'Elanna, watch it with making those promises you can't keep.
I haven't seen my father since I was 5. He and my mother separated. He went back to Earth, and that was the last I saw of him.
Amazingly, every time this is brought up in the future, they stick to this story. Well done, writers.
Isn't there anyone back home who'd be worried about you?
The Maquis are as close to family as I've ever had. Most of my friends are here, on the ship.
This line is one of those lines that makes me think there should have been tension between the crews even after they were forced to team up. The Maquis was comprised of a lot of close-knit puppy cells. While they hated the Cardassians, they also felt betrayed by the Federation, who were hunting them instead of helping them. Humans are rarely logical creatures and tend to make emotional decisions, even when that decision is detrimental to the chances of success.
How long should we keep it up?
Until I tell you otherwise. You have the bridge, Commander.
Captain,
Mr. Tuvok.
I'm getting something, Captain.
I'm getting it too.
One of the weaknesses of a TV show with an ensemble cast is often having to just give characters lines so they can stay relevant to the scene. Does it make sense for the tactical officer to be the one dealing with communications? I guess for a military vessel it does, and Worf certainly did take care of TNG. But why would Tom be getting in on this too? I don't think the pilot would have access to that.
Someone received our transmission and sent one back. And their signal originated in the Alpha Quadrant.
But how would you know this? I mean, I can accept him recognizing the signal properties of a certain race from the Alpha Quadrant, but if a message is being sent through a wormhole, distance calculations that you would typically use on a signal to determine its point of origin are meaningless.
If there were a member of the crew whose needs weren't being met, would you want to know about it?
Of course. Yes. Do you and Neelix feel that your needs are being ignored?
I like that this is Janeway's first response. While every captain in Trek has had their own style, be it Kirk's gung-ho attitude or Picard's diplomacy or Janeway's somewhat motherly stance, one aspect they have all shared is the proper concern a commander needs to have for their subordinates. We get to see here that Janeway both kept her door open for the crew to talk to her, as well as gave proper consideration to what they came to discuss with her.
I'm referring to the doctor.
The doctor. How do people treat him?
As though he doesn't exist. They talk about him while he's standing right there.
I've been hearing the other side of the coin. Many of the crew have complained that the doctor is brusque, even rude, that he lacks any bedside manner.
One of the things I really like about this exchange is that both sides are correct in their assertions. The doctor has been brusque and has no bedside manner.
Hold still.
And the crew of Voyager has been treating him like a hypo spray. Even in this conversation, the fact that their first thought was to reprogram him, despite the risk such a move would bring with it, rather than talking to him, says a lot about how they viewed the Doctor. I love that this is the baseline for the Doctor's character arc.
He's self-aware. He's communicative. He has the ability to learn. So because he's a hologram, he doesn't have to be treated with respect.
They really did a good job of making Kes come off as a self-assured 14-year-old. Yes, you don't have to treat an object with respect. This is one of those recurring themes in Star Trek. What is the nature of life? Is Data a living being? Is the Doctor? If you give a program the ability to think and adapt, is it really any different than the way we think and adapt? In Voyager especially, the only thing preventing any hologram from becoming sentient is just a factor of how long you leave it turned on. But realistically, there is no singularity point where the amount of data stored generates sentience, and the Doctor is just a computer program. However, for the sake of suspension of disbelief in the confines of Star Trek, yes, Virginia, the Doctor is alive.
Very well. I'll look into it.
Also, this is another one of those moments where we can see Janeway emotionally rejecting something out of hand and still giving it a chance intellectually, and I like that character trait. I think over time we see less of it, but it made for good moments when they used it.
I'm still worried about the gravitational interference. I don't think the covariant isolator will be effective with the vocal transmission.
Let's try inverting the narrowband filter.
I don't think inverting the narrowband filter would help. The inverse of a narrowband filter is just everything. You'd have to parse through every other band at once instead of getting rid of any communication band that you didn't need.
I think we're ready to give it a try. But we're pushing through some pretty heavy gravitational interference. I can't guarantee the clarity of the transmission.
Would gravity cause interference to communication? I mean, since radio waves are just a non-visible part of the electromagnetic spectrum, then sure, something like a black hole would mess you up the same way it would bend light. I guess since they already talked about the gravity in the wormhole, this could at least theoretically check out.
I'll narrow the filter bandpass some more. Try again, Captain.
See? B'Elanna knew Kim's idea was bad. She didn't invert anything. She's filtering out even more of the background noise.
Narrow the bandpass a little more.
I see what you're doing there, Harry. Don't try to steal her ideas and then pass them off as your own when they start to work.
I am captain of the cargo vessel Talbot. Location Alpha Quadrant, Sector 1385. What is your location?
This is how normal people communicate, right? By giving their full address to everyone who calls them? Forget it. This is how I'm answering my phone from now on regardless.
We were on a mission and we got pulled into this quadrant.
Pulled in? How?
It's a complicated story.
Well, at least it's not a long story.
I assure you, I am telling you the truth. We are in the Delta Quadrant, 70,000 light years from you.
Let's see. Voyager arrived in the Delta Quadrant on stardate 48315.6, and it's now stardate 48579.4. That comes out to 5,000 light years in 3 months. At Warp 8, that should have taken them almost 5 years. No wonder Voyager was out of gas. They were going faster than Warp 10 when they started. That, or the powers that be decided Voyager was only 70,000 light years away instead of 75. I feel like for the rest of the series, they use that 70,000 light year number as the distance they need to travel.
This is preposterous. You are obviously lying. I am terminating communication.
Why would he have broken off transmission?
Maybe because he thought you were prank healing him? I thought he made his position fairly clear on this.
Further, there are no known shipping lanes in the sector he identified. Given the precise calibration of the signal, I would suggest that he is in fact on board a science vessel.
Initially, I had a note here making fun of the fact that Tuvok could tell the type of ship based on the calibration of the signal. But listening to it again, I realized that Tuvok was guessing it was a science vessel because of how precise it was. So instead, I'll say that's a leap in logic there, Tuvok. There are plenty of civilians who demand tighter tolerances than the military, and I bet Scotty kept his ship running tighter than the regulations. Tuvok's right, of course, though.
Computer, initiate emergency medical holographic program.
I was right in the middle of preparing a culture to test Lieutenant Hargrove for Arethian flu when Ensign Kyoto deactivated me.
I have a lot of praise for this scene in general. I like the way we get to see the casual disregard everyone has for the Doctor at this point with the way he was turned off in the middle of working. I like the fact that Janeway is coming to talk to him about how he's having to operate beyond the bounds of his programming and giving him a chance to naturally rise to the occasion without having to be reprogrammed. But one of the odd things here is this line from the Doctor complaining about acting as an instructor as well.
Now you're being asked to do much more.
That's certainly true. I'm providing full-time medical service for the entire ship's crew, functioning as both doctor and nurse, and now as an instructor as well.
In this episode, the Doctor makes it sound like the job was thrust on him, but in the Phage episode, we see he's the one who took the initiative to ask Janeway to be allowed to instruct Cass. They also make it seem like this is one of the first times they've really spoken like this, even though he would have had to ask about Cass one-on-one. It's a minor issue, but the timing of events seems slightly off.
You don't have the luxury of thinking of yourself as an emergency medical program anymore.
I see. Are you suggesting that I be reprogrammed?
Yes.
No.
The Doctor's pretty perspective here to pick up on the fact that Janeway wants to reprogram him. I also like how at this point, he doesn't really care about the prospects of being reprogrammed, as to a large degree, he still views himself as a tool.
I'm asking if there's anything I can do to help you.
Help me?
If there's anything you need or want, I'd like to see that you get it.
I absolutely love the fact that Janeway goes the extra mile for her crew. I mean, can you imagine her making a choice that would strand them somewhere, potentially for the rest of their lives cut off from their friends and family? That would be nuts!
What I'd like is to be turned off when people leave. I spend hours here with absolutely nothing to do. When someone does remember to deactivate me, they do so without asking if it's convenient. It's extremely irritating.
This is such a crazy concept. Just imagine constantly being shaken awake, only for someone else to spring out of nowhere and chloroform you. I think I'd also like being promised that I could decide when to wake up and go to sleep on my own. Also, check out the acting chops on Robert Picardo in this scene. The way he skirts the line between showing how genuinely touched he is by Janeway coming to talk to him and remaining indifferent as the mere EMH he is at this point in time is fantastic. Someday, I want to see a director have the guts to show a woman wake up in the middle of the night with drool covering half her face and not a speck of makeup on. Until then, I guess we're supposed to just believe that Janeway sleeps in such a way that not a single strand of hair in her head is disturbed.
What is your name? How may I address you?
Crap! Janeway, you came on too strong and you're scaring him away.
I hope you've been able to verify our position.
My analysis of your hailing frequency seems to indicate that it originates in the Delta Quadrant.
Yep, little known fact. Anytime you're in the Delta Quadrant, you have to use frequencies above 47 gigahertz.
But I am not precluding the possibility that you've been able to create that illusion somehow.
To what end?
I'm not sure, but that doesn't negate the possibility.
I mean, other than the fact that he's wrong, he's not wrong.
You say you are a Federation ship. Are you a Starfleet vessel?
I guess when you stop to think about it, human privateers like Harry Mudd would still have been Federation vessels. It's like the difference between having a sailing yacht and being aboard a US destroyer.
Our mission was originally in the Alpha Quadrant. We were pulled against our will to our present location.
Huh. Earlier she said the answer was complicated, but here she explained it in a single concise sentence. I guess the writers just didn't want to answer it right then and couldn't think of a better reason to get out of answering it. Thank goodness we'll never see that kind of bad writing ever again.
You have nothing to fear from us.
Soothing words, Captain. But they are only words.
I'm on the Romulan side for this one. The more someone tells me I have nothing to fear from them, the more I wonder why they feel they need to specifically tell me that.
If we were spies, we wouldn't be asking what I'm going to ask you now. We're hoping you might be able to relay a message for us. Our crew is not large. Each of them could write a short personal message. You'd be welcome to read them all before passing them on.
I see no reason why a spy wouldn't ask this. In fact, if I was a spy, this would be a great cover story and something I would ask to put his fears to rest.
On screen.
Oh yeah, I remember having to do this with VHS tapes. It was called adjusting the tracking, and no matter what you did, it never really seemed to clear up all the fuzz. Holy crap, it's Vaughn Armstrong! He's one of the literal handful of people who have played 7 or more different characters across multiple Star Trek shows. He's been a Klingon in TNG, Enterprise, and Voyager, 2 different Cardassians in DS9, a Romulan, a member of Species 571, a Vidian, and a Hirogen in Voyager. You might remember him the most, however, as his role in Enterprise as Vice Admiral Maxwell Forrest.
I am not familiar with this class of ship.
It's new, but it isn't classified.
When you stop to think about it, there's a lot you could find out by having a casual visual stream of your main command area. It's no wonder military vessels redact any kind of recording that gets a good look around in it.
You said you've been in space for over a year. Do you have any family?
My wife and my daughter are on Romulus. She is 7 months.
Look, not to detract from this scene discussing the hardship that the military life brings, and I truly do thank anyone in the armed forces for the sacrifices that I have personally had to watch you make, missing out on births and years of your children's life, but I just noticed Kate Mulgrew has pierced ears. How have I never noticed this before?
We would be deeply grateful for any efforts you might make to persuade your government to send our messages.
I cannot guarantee success, but I will try to persuade my superiors to make their decision quickly.
Let's assume he's going to be successful. Tell the crew to prepare personal messages and have them ready within the hour.
Not only is this the right choice to make, I mean, after all, you don't want to get the green light with only an hour to spare and have everyone making a mad dash to get letters written. I honestly can't imagine the Romulan Senate not taking their letters. They might not deliver them, but you can bet they'd at least take them.
The phase amplitude of the visual link with the Romulan ship. It's within just a few megahertz of meeting transporter protocols.
Is Janeway tripping right now? Why is she moving her eyes like she's reading something? She's only talking to B'Elanna. Oh my goodness. There was no consistency between cuts in this scene. Look at Janeway's hands. She's pointing at B'Elanna. Now they're down. Now they're a fist. Now they're down by her sides again. All between cuts. Let's be honest. She's probably feeling happier about being able to see her dog again than her boyfriend.
I suspect you have an eidetic memory. An astonishing gift. I'll do a full neural scan on you at some point.
Considering how short the Okampa live, it would make a lot of sense for everyone in their race to memorize things almost immediately.
I've been thinking, if we do get back to Federation space, I'd like to explore the possibility of going to medical school.
I don't see why Kes or Neelix would care about the crew leaving Voyager. I'd figure they'd be more interested in keeping the ship when everyone is gone.
I see. Well, I'll say goodbye now. I won't be transporting with the rest of you.
But can't we download your program and take you with us?
My program is fully integrated into the sickbay system. At present, I cannot be downloaded.
I really hate this line. This statement doesn't even remain true for the next 4 episodes. And when he does leave the sickbay, no mention is given about him being fully integrated into sickbay systems. Oh well, no one bats 1,000, I guess.
Could I ask a favor of you?
Anything.
If you do leave, before you go, would you check to make sure I've been deactivated?
Oh, don't worry about that, Doctor. If everyone did leave Voyager, I would imagine Janeway would set it to self-destruct. She wouldn't want the Kazon getting a hold of it.
But Captain, if we can't transport to your ship, how are we to get back?
If the procedure is successful, I'll arrange for a troop ship to join me. That would easily accommodate your crew.
Like the letters, I can't imagine the Romulan Senate not letting them beam over. Letting them leave after they beam over, well, that's a little more iffy. Well, I guess I won't be needing this anymore.
I suggest we delay that for the moment, Captain. I'm afraid I found the reason for the unusual phase variance.
What is it?
Captain, what year is it?
Way to answer a question with a question, Tuvok.
Our Romulan visitor is a person out of time. He's showing clear evidence of temporal displacement.
The question is, how did Tuvok immediately recognize this upon seeing him in person, but never thought about it while seeing him on the view screen?
I've gone over and over the transporter logs. There's no question that if we try to transport ourselves through that wormhole, we'll end up 20 years in the past.
Do you really need to go over the transporter logs to prove this? I mean, you can only transport to what's on the other end of the wormhole. That's the past.
I'm afraid we'll have to send you back alone. And ask that you not reveal anything that has happened here.
I can assure you, Captain, that I would not do anything that might contaminate the future and perhaps harm the Romulan Empire.
I can totally believe one person making a choice not to reveal the existence of time travel if he thought revealing it would damage his own future.
They can have the satisfaction of knowing that their messages have reached their families.
Captain, I did not want to mention this until after our guest had left. I checked the computer's databanks for a Romulan scientist named Telek Ramor.
Well, I don't think Kate Mulgrew was the strongest actor on the cast. She did have her moments, and this scene is one of them. She's doing a great job giving Tuvok this pleading look where she knows he's about to deliver some horrendous news and really doesn't want to hear it.
I'm sorry to report, Dr. Ramor died in 2367.
That was 4 years ago.
And that is correct. Before he would have sent our messages.
I feel like this was a really good way for them to have their cake and eat it too. Certainly, it would have been nice to hear about this reference later on, say when Barclay was obsessed with the Midas Array, but I guess the truth of the matter is, by not hearing about it, we do find out that he didn't leave a will. Or maybe that the Romulan government decided not to do anything with it. Though in Season 7, we do hear Barclay comment that the Romulans have always been interested in Voyager, which could mean they did receive the letters. Or maybe they just became interested in Voyager after the events in Prometheus.
Then let's move on. We've got a long way to go.
I love it when professionals act like professionals. This moment is a lot like the moment we got with Scotty and his nephew in Star Trek II.
Scotty, I have to ask, is there any chance of getting the mains back on the line?
I didn't think so, sir, but you'll have my best. Thanks. I know you tried, Doctor.
There may be times when you just want to sit down and cry, but the professional sucks it up and saves it for the right time.
Lieutenant, I am the chief medical officer of this ship. If you have something to say to me, please direct this statement to me. If I see you in here again for an exercise-related injury, I'll have to discuss the matter with your superior officer. Captain Janeway has made me realize that I must function as more than an emergency medical replacement. I must think of myself as a member of the crew.
I love it when a scene accomplishes a lot with a minimal amount. This scene establishes the Doctor as the Doctor. It's both the crew accepting his role and the Doctor accepting his role, and it was very well done. It is slightly marred by the fact that they go on to spell out what just happened, but I love that they didn't need to spell it out. They could have left it right here, and we still would have walked away understanding what it was they wanted to accomplish. So, The Eye of the Needle. It was an interesting choice to have a "you're going home, psych, just kidding" episode this early on. In fact, considering the season 1 finale episode, I think Eye of the Needle would have been a better fit for the season finale, as it ends on that resolve to keep heading for home. All in all though, this was a strong episode. I like the way the wormhole was shown as being murky and listless when compared to the bright and vibrant colors of the DS9 wormhole, to contrast a thriving wormhole with a dying one. It's interesting how many episodes in season 1 are dedicated to developing the Doctor's character. I don't blame the writers for wanting to give Robert Picardo work. The man knows how to work a scene. Parallax was an episode about B'Elanna, but it still did a lot with the Doctor. So did Phage. The Cloud got to see him in action as well, even if it didn't focus on him extensively. And now, Eye of the Needle. That's half of the first half of season 1. This episode ended up being another bottle episode, as the set from the Romulan shuttlecraft was used from past Romulan episodes, like Face of the Enemy, one of the few Troy episodes that was actually good. It was supposed to be an easy episode to produce, but at the time there was a discussion going around to change the form of each episode from a 5-act structure to a 4-act structure, and there was a lot of pressure to get this episode rewritten into that 4-act structure. But oddly enough, I don't think the 4-act structure was ever used after this one episode. They're also supposed to include the first appearance of Janeway's gothic holonovel in this episode, so building the sets for that sent the episode over budget, and then they didn't even use it for another 5 episodes. One of the many things they did well in this episode were the little hints they provided, indicating that there was a difference in their time frames. And if you're going to have time travel for the third time in 5 episodes, a theoretical phenomenon that already interacts with time and space in an odd way, such as a wormhole does, is a great way to do it. Alright, that's it for this video. If you want to be a week ahead of everyone else, you can join my supporters on either Subscribestar or Patreon by searching for Life with Matthew, or just clicking on the links in the description below this video. Thank you so much to my current supporters, which, according to my notes, are John DeMarco at the Priority 1 Hail level, and at the Hailing Frequencies Open tier are the Salty Trekker, Ben Joaz, and Rock Solid Productions. And joining them is Commodore Ty. And on the Section 31 tier, Thomas Potts. Thank you, Thomas Potts and Commodore Ty, for making it so I don't need to reach out to mysterious Romulans on the other end of unknown wormholes. Be sure to subscribe for more, and until the next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.